Teresa.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I have the pleasure to introduce to you Deacon Frank Zemeski from the Diocese of Pittsburgh. Deacon had a very first-hand experience because he had traveled to Chimbote, and so he is going to be showing his slides and telling us more about Chimbote. So please relax and enjoy his slides. Okay, Deacon, it's to you.
Thank you very much. Can everybody see the slides?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, here we go.
The Chimbote Foundation was created to provide a bridge of love, hope, faith, and financial support to care for the poorest of the poor in Chimbote through the Center of Social Works, a maternity hospital, outpatient clinic, clinical laboratory, pharmacy, and home for abandoned and neglected children, serving hundreds of thousands since the mid-1960s. For the past few years, I had the pleasure of going down to Chimbote and experiencing the people in Chimbote, Peru myself. Some may ask, where's Chimbote, Peru? Well, it's directly 4,000 miles south of Pittsburgh. It's also about an 8-hour bus ride from Lima to Chimbote. There's only one route that goes up from Lima to Chimbote, and it's a lovely view of the Pacific Ocean on one side and the Andes Mountains on the east. The history of our mission was created back in the 1960s. Who was Bishop John Wright. He was a bishop of Pittsburgh at the time. And there was just a small 3-room medical clinic and a small maternity hospital. And over the decades, he had a spiraling numbers of patients that required the additional of medical needs and needed a laboratory, pharmacy, in addition to the orphanage and home visit program. Over the years, the mission has thrived despite the catastrophic earthquake, a cholera pandemic, and corrupt government. Today, the mission serves from 800 to 1,200 people per day and has become a quality medical facility for the people in Chimbote. Monsignor Jules Roos, who was a Pittsburgh priest it was assigned back there in 1963, and he co-founded the mission to combat high infant mortality. And he devoted his next 50 years to serving the poor in Chimbote, and is buried there, the poor that he served. Sister Margaret Mary and Sister Lillian are also 2 Dominican sisters and nurse midwives, also dedicated their lives for being down there. And they've almost worked over 55 years serving the poor in Chimbote. Today, our mission for the Center of Social Works is the Maternidad, which is a modern maternal hospital, outpatient wellness clinic, a laboratory, pharmacy, physical therapy, an orphanage, and a home visit program. The maternity hospital gives many different healthcare to women as far as gynecology, obstetrics, prenatal care, and delivery and postpartum care. And more than 100,000 babies have been born as of October 2019 since the maternity was created. We also have the Padre Julio Roos Children's Center for abandoned and orphaned children. It started back in 1993 and it was renamed under Monsignor Roos back in 2015 as the founder of the Center of Social Works. So his memory will live on in the city of Chimbote. In 2019, the new Nueva Posta Medica was dedicated as a brand new building that they tore down the old one and built this one to house many different laboratories, a pharmacy, a dentist, and other well visit programs that they can house in that new building. Back in 2019, there was a missionary trip that went down in June, and there were young adults from all over the area and recent colleges like Robert Morris and other local like Pitt and Duquesne. It was a wonderful experience for them, and they wanted to find out how to serve other people, including the poor, here in Pittsburgh and wherever they go to work. Most of these students were nursing in the nursing program. Our home visit to the barrios, the nurses go out every morning and afternoon to visit and minister to the poorest of the poor in Chimbote. As you can see, most of the places are nothing but huts and straw mat walls and roofs. We had the honor of visiting Mr. Shapiro and his wife. We went out there to drop off a walker for his wife because she was having trouble walking. And as you can see, they didn't have much of a place to live. They just had a small one-room hut, and they needed a bed as well. And we were able to provide a new bed for them as we were down there. They also had a sweet potato farm, and his son used to come and help him, but his son no longer came, so the farm just stood there. So we helped out to pick up some new sweet potatoes for him, and he was most gracious to give us a few of his sweet potatoes. We had worked a little hard for about a half hour, but we had quite a few. We came home about 21 sweet potatoes, which was nice. We kind of provided some money for him to pay for his food and some medical needs that he had, because he had no money to pay for those. So we were able to give him some money that he can get those needs taken care of at the Maternidad. And there was a picture of us with him and his wife. A lot of the places in Chimbote out in barrios are just rundown buildings that they can find a place to stay. That's where they have their own shelter. But other than that, they have straw huts and so forth. This was Elizabeth, who takes care of her 3 siblings. She was only 13 years old at the time, and she would watch her 3 other children, brothers and sisters, for 13 to 14 hours a day while her mom went out and worked. They didn't have much of anything. That was their dining room table, and that was their stove. They didn't have much. As you can see from that picture, the barrios run very far up north and to the south of Chimbote. Lewis, he was a special needs person whose parents didn't quite know how to understand how to minister to a special needs child. And so he slept out in the shack outside of their house. This was his bed. Nothing more than like a doghouse, if you will. So we got in there and we bought him a bed, and he was happy to get his own brand new pillow, and he was happy to get his own bed. And we brought information to his parents on how to deal with special needs children. We came to another family where they had to basically use the money that they had to buy food or prescriptions for their children. And we provided financial needs for themselves so they can both eat and provide the medications that they needed for their children. And for this family here, we also provided a bed for them and monetary help as well. He ran a taxi service, and he lost his license, and he needed another one. And for him to continue working will continue to help his family grow and be fed. Here is nothing but a big giant garbage dump, and as we were walking by, I didn't quite notice who was there. And as you can see, it's a father and his 2 children just finding anything that they could find so they can sell for money. Some people had to do the direst needs to be able to provide anything that they can for their family. But people give back. In 1988, a mother came into the Maternidad who was pregnant with twins. Out of the 2 twins, this little girl that Monsignor Roos is holding survived. And surprisingly, she grew, and she went to school and went to college to become a dentist. And she happened to find a job right back at the Maternidad where she was born to provide dental care and needs for the poor and even the orphans. She gives her time to check up on as well. Even in death, there is a big difference between the rich and the poor. The rich have quite astounding monuments to celebrate their death. The normal common people just have a vault burial, even where Padre Julio is buried as well. But the poor are different. The poor get nothing but a dirt, and they have to bury their relatives themselves. They have to take them out with the car and still have to pay for a little spot that they can bury them in, but they have to bury themselves. Quite a sight to see when you're there in person, especially when that's all you get as a marker. The orphans found a special place in my heart as we were there, and they're always a fun joy to be around, and they bring new life to the people of Chimbote. There was also a local school that was by. The students would come by and dedicate their time to play with the children as well. Here we were in the midst of playing a game of duck, duck, goose. But while we were there, we can spend our time with our children. We can rock them to sleep. We can help feed them and play with them. And they're very easily to get attached to. Here I was playing a video that I took of another people that we visited. They were singing a song, so it was all in Spanish. So they were quite intrigued because they can understand it. I could not, but they could. One child in particular had a special bond. This is Patrick and I back in 2016. He was an orphan there along with his brother as well. And every time I went and visited him every year, even with my daughter, we'd always spend time together. He always had fun playing and being on a trampoline. And we had a special guest last year on our way to church. Because one thing on that day, it was Father's Day, and it was also Patrick's birthday. And we got to sing my happy birthday while we were there. He likes being silly, and he'll do everything in his power to keep me from leaving. And it's always hard to say goodbye. We also had a spiritual walk. As we take our walk up the side of the mountain that overlooks Chimbote, it gives us a kind of a sense of what our journey is through life. And sometimes it's not very hard and not very pleasant to see, but we get to see God's work and overlook what he can create. Love happens. When we get to the top, there's a church we were able to see and experience the joys of what a new beginning could happen. This church is only about 6 or 7 years old, and it's made for the Church of the Youth. And we got to see the crypt church as well and write our prayers for the niche behind the altar. And as it overlooks the city of Chimbote, we can see the outline of a rosary that they used to light on the youth days that they had up there. For over half a century, through good times and challenging times, the faithful in the 6 counties of our diocese have maintained and strengthened a bridge of love and hope to the people of Chimbote, Peru. We have nurtured the work in Chimbote as it grew from the humble beginnings to a regional, recognized, multi-service health facility. You can always help by being a missionary yourself through the financial giving, or just praying for the people in Chimbote, the poorest of the poor of God's children. Thank you.
Thank you, Deacon Frank, and thank you for your firsthand witness to our diocesan mission in Chimbote, Peru. And for those of us at St. Mary Magdalene, we were introduced last year to the Chimbote mission through the initiative of Teresa Maynor and the children in our CCD program who worked to begin our support and initiate our relationship with the mission.